Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video I thought I'd set myself a little bit of a challenge because out in my garage I have a box of broken Star Wars vehicles, and part of that box is full of these, which is broken X-wings. They are all in an incredibly sorry state, and I thought it would be quite fun to take the remains of these X-wings that I have here and see what I can build from them. They are all very broken, as you can see. Lots of them have wings broken. In fact, all of them have their wings broken. Some are very yellowed. And generally, yeah, they look like a right mess. So that's going to be the challenge of today's videos. I'm going to take all of these X-wings, and I'm hoping that from all of these parts and pieces, I can rebuild one reasonably good looking X-wing and get it actually all working again. So let's get on with it. So what have we got to work with? Well, I'll show you sort of the bare bones of what is here. As you can see, there's the remains of an X-wing here. I get given bits all the time, so I just generally put them in a box because I never know when they're going to come in handy. You know, or even broken bits can become useful in time. So the first one is the real remains of an X-wing. This one has been gutted for parts, so there's nothing much left of it. That is the main body, bit yellowed with a couple of stickers left on it, and then the wings that came with that are these here, and these are completely smashed sort of in half. A very common problem with these X-wings, the middle part of the wing is quite brittle. So we've got the remains of sort of some wings. I don't think there's enough to rebuild too much from them. This wing here is actually certainly fixable, so I may fix this as we go along. You can see it's snapped in the middle and we have all the pieces, so that one definitely is fixable. We can repair that, a bit of plastic weld and some supports, and we can get that working. But the other wing, we're missing a good chunk of what goes in the middle. You can see we're missing all of the piece in the middle. So I probably could rebuild that, but it's going to take rather a long time. So I think that one I'm going to class as sort of a duff piece. I'll put it back in my box. You can see I've also got the top section to this, but that's actually the top section from a different one. There's a broken off post there, and this one doesn't have the post broken off. So I don't know where that one came from, but there's, you know, bits of wings. So I'll repair some of those wings. They are certainly useful. I think this X-wing here is probably the most likely candidate for what we're going to do. It's not too bad. You can see the main body is fairly white, and the wings are pretty white as well, but they are broken. In fact, they are completely broken. Does that one come out? Yeah, they're broken completely. So I'm hoping those ones are the ones that we can fix, because you can see we've got all of the pieces here. So this one I think is going to be the most likely candidate to get working again if we can get it all back together. Does this wing mechanism even work? Hard to tell actually when the wings are broken. So yeah, that's going to be the basis. And then I have one other X-wing here which is very, very filthy. Look how dirty that is, and very yellowed. But I do need this one for parts as well, because I don't have landing gear in that one. And this is the only X-wing I have with the landing gear, so we're going to use that one for that part. But I'll give this a good clean as well while I'm at it, just because, you know, it's probably not too bad under all of that dirt. It's a bit yellowed, but so the overall shit is in relatively good condition, I would say, just very, very worn. So this is what we're working with. As you can see, it really is a pile of parts. But I reckon we can get one pretty reasonable X-wing out of that. If not two, there's certainly going to be enough of the remains to make a sort of the good start on a second X-wing. So first thing to do is take this all apart so they're all in their component pieces. So let's get the screwdriver out and we'll take them to pieces. So these are all Palitoy versions of the X-wing, which means they're relatively straightforward to take apart. There's no electronics in them, and there's just two screws on the top here that we have to undo, and then one screw at the front there, and then the sort of top and bottom sections to come apart. We'll be able to get inside, see what's rattling in there. There's something in there. You know, might get lucky, it might be a weapon, but I doubt it. It's probably just a bit of the plastic broken off the wing. So let's get these unscrewed and we'll see what's inside them and split them down to their component parts, which will make it much easier for washing as well, because I'm going to have to soak all of these in hot soapy water. There's so much dirt and grime on them. I think they're going to be fully submerged and fully washed before we can do anything about rebuilding them. Right, so that's the three screws out. Should just be able to take this top section off. Yep, nothing on there. Take R2-D2 out. Oh no, he's screwed in the bottom, isn't he? So we've got to take that out. That's the little latch mechanism. Put that in the pot as well. Oh, I can see what it is. It's in there. It's the remains of the landing gear. So that's why this one doesn't have a landing gear. It is snapped off. So yeah. Right, a couple more screws to take R2-D2 out. and the whole mechanism that does the wings. Like so. Remove that, should just pull out. So there's the bottom section. Again, that's not too bad, a bit dirty. You can take these seats out if you want, just sort of a bit of a wiggle. Don't think I'm going to need to do that, so I'll just put that in the pile of things to wash. Here is the wing section. And again, if we just lift that up, you can pull this pin out, and then the wings should come apart. Might need a pair of pliers to get that out. There we go. So pull that pin out, and then we can take these wings off like so. Yeah, so you can see these are broken, as I showed you earlier. These are broken exactly the same way, but I think we have all the parts to put these back together. Oh no, that one's missing a piece, so we will have to fabricate something to go between those two bits. But I do think that is fixable. Where's the other one of the wings for this? I put it there. Right, and that's that one. Again, yeah, that is fixable. There's a bit of a bow in that plastic, so maybe we're going to have to straighten that as well. A bit of hot water, we can straighten that out. But I certainly think that is fixable. Right, so what I'm going to do is take the rest of these X-wings apart. That one just needs a screw removing that. I'll take this one apart as well, and then we will get washing. Lots of hot soapy water and a toothbrush, and I'll clean all of these up. Okay, so that's everything clean, and I've now chosen the pieces that I'm going to fix out of that pile of broken ones. I've essentially chosen the best of the bunch. There's some very nice white pieces. In fact, this white sort of fuselage section is probably the best of the lot. The others are a little bit yellowed, but nothing too bad. It's still going to look quite nice when it's all together. Next thing we need to fix is the wings, but the first thing we have to do before we can even start sort of reattaching them is to straighten them. You can see that these ones have broken probably a very long time ago, and then they've been left, I'm just saying, a loft or something, and it's slowly bent over time. You can see this should be perfectly flat like that, and this piece in the middle has bent, so we've got to straighten those. The other one is much the same. You can see this one's got a slight sort of bow to it. So to do that, all you need is just boiled water. I'm going to basically get a flat pan, fill it with just boiled water. I will put this in the pan and then sort of let everything warm up. As the plastic warms up, you can then start to flex it and move it back into shape, and so I'll be able to flatten this down and straighten it out. It may take a few goes to do it just because this is quite a pronounced bend, but you have to warm everything up first. So just boiled water. If the water starts to cool off, reboil it and put this back in just to warm the plastic up. So let's get these straightened out, and then we can start reattaching them and gluing them all back together. And now these are nice and straight again. You can see it's that simple. You just basically put them in, it's just boiled water. That will heat the plastic up enough that you can sort of bend it and shape it. You have to be gentle with it, but you can see I've now ended up with a very nice flat looking wing. The other one has come together just as well, so that is nice and flat. So now we can start reattaching these together. I have two sets that are going to be really straightforward because there's no pieces missing. This one at the front, you can see basically we've got a plastic weld that back together. I've got some EMA plastic weld here. That will fuse those joins very nicely, and then we're going to reinforce that using some 0.5mm styrene sheet. So I'll essentially weld those two pieces together, and then I'll cut pieces of sheets just to place over these joins to give them that little extra bit of strength. You don't need a huge amount. Basically the problem with these wings is that they flex this way, so without any reinforcement, even if you plastic welded these, it would be a nice strong join, but it has the chance of breaking again. So a little bit of reinforcement, that will do all it needs. With this one though, you can see we are missing a piece, so I'm going to have to recreate that section completely just using styrene sheet. These wing pieces are 2mm thick, so I have some 2mm white styrene. I will make a replacement piece for that, and then I will reinforce it as well, and that should produce a very nice strong join. So let's do the easy ones first, which is just the plastic weld and some reinforcement, and then we'll do the more complicated rebuild, and I'll show you all of that as I go along. So let's get this joined together. I'm going to do a sort of little bit of welding first and plastic weld these two pieces together, and then I'll put the reinforcement on once this has fused and had time to set a little bit. We could do it all in one go, but I think this is going to work the easiest, and we should be able to sort of weld these two pieces fairly strongly together just without the reinforcement. I've got a pot here just to rest things on, just so I can rest it like that, because these are a bit of an awkward shape. As you can see, everything's going to be resting slightly awkwardly. So let's weld those two pieces together. As I say, I'm using EMA plastic weld, so you just need a brush to put this on. Get some on the brush, and it starts to basically dissolve the edge of the plastic, and then fuses the two pieces of plastic back together, so you end up with a join that is as strong as the original plastic would have been. It's quite amazing stuff, and once you learn to use it, it's very hard to give up on this stuff. But it only works with certain plastic. I've seen a lot of people message me saying, oh, they've tried it and it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It does only work with a certain type of plastic, so you need a sort of styrene based plastic, and then you'll get an amazing join. So there we go, you can see that it's already starting to join. I'm just going to leave that for sort of 5 or 10 minutes just to set fully, and then we can start reinforcing it. Okay, that's had enough time. It's still not fully set, but it's given enough strength that I can work on this. So what I've done is I've cut some pieces of this 0.5mm styrene sheet, and you can see I've just cut pieces that are going to fit across where the break is, and we're going to stick these on both sides. So I've made a little piece like that, and then I've made a tiny piece like this as well, which will just fit across that break there. They don't need to be particularly neat. You could go to the effort of sort of cutting a perfect shape, but it doesn't really matter. All of this is hidden inside the toy once it's put together, so just make them as you see fit. For me, it doesn't need to be a neat job. This is completely hidden. So again, get some plastic weld. I'm going to cover this whole surface here because this is where I'm sticking that piece. And I'll push this piece on, and then once it's sort of started to go off, put a bit more on and use capillary action to get it to sort of pull in between the two pieces, but that will create a very firm join, and by the time this is all dried, this wing will be as good as new, and you won't even notice that it's been fixed. That's that side done. I should be able to turn this over like so. And then we'll do the same on the other side, and we'll let everything set. Okay, everything has now had time to set, so you can see that's the first set of wings that I did, and they are really strong again. It's amazing what a difference just a little bit of extra support does to these things. They are really very firm now. So plastic weld and some 0.5mm sheet styrene, and you can get a very strong bond, and that is really fixed together very nicely. I took the time to do the other set of wings that I got here. So those are the ones that are broken without any pieces missing. Let's test them. So here is a good set of wings, but you can see the tops of this one is quite yellow. So what I'm going to do is swap out one of those, and we can put in this otherwise broken set back in, and you can see that there's enough gap between all of these pieces that a 0.5mm styrene sheet makes very little difference to it, which is why you can do these sorts of fixes. And this, as I say, is all hidden inside. So those wings are now ready to go in an X-wing. Those are fixed fully. Now we've got the more complicated job of repairing the other wings that have a piece missing. It's pretty much the same process, except we've got to construct that missing piece out of some 2mm thick styrene sheet, and then we'll do the same process again and do the extra support with the 0.5mm styrene sheet. But these wings are all fixed and can go back in the first X-wing.
toy-polloi.
Right, now for the wing with the piece missing. What I've done straight away is just filed down the two areas where it's broken, so we've got nice flat surfaces. If you do try and sort of match the sort of slightly crooked broken surface, it's really quite awkward, so just file those down so you've got a flat surface to work with. I've got myself a piece of 2mm styrene sheet here, and I'm just going to start sort of making something that sort of fills in that gap. So I'll use a pencil just to roughly mark the shape out, and then start cutting it and shaping it until I've got something that fits, and then we can plastic weld it back in place and then add all of the reinforcements like we did on the other wings, and that should produce a set of wings that is going to work really nicely and be very strong. So let me get to marking and drawing and cutting, and we'll see what we can make. As you can see, I've now stuck that bit of 2mm styrene on. It's a very crudely cut shape, but it's close enough that it will work. And you can see I've already started to stick the extra bits of support on the underside of this, just to give this piece some extra strength. And now I've sort of reached the point that I can actually start joining these two pieces together. That will make it a lot easier, just because this is a fairly awkward break. So you can see that is going to fit very nicely indeed. So I'll just plastic weld these two pieces back onto here, let it dry for a bit, and then I'll put some more reinforcement on this back side of it, and that wing should be good to go. So yeah, it just needs a little bit of sort of fairly sort of simple cutting, and this is 2mm thick styrene sheet that I've used for the sort of replacement part, and then the 0.5mm sheet again as for the reinforcement. But you can see that is going to fit on, and it's going to work pretty well. I've now let everything had time to dry and set, and that is a really good firm bond. You can see I put the extra supports on the other side as well. That is looking really good. I can shake it, nothing's cracking, as is the other one. Yeah, I'm very happy with how those are looking. So we can start to put this back together. So if I put these two together like so, you can see they now sit very nicely, very snug fit actually. Nothing is pushing on anything else, and yeah, there's plenty of space between these surfaces as I showed you on the other one, so you can actually fix both sides and it's really not going to cause any issues. But there we go, that is that all sorted. I can now start putting this X-wing back together. I've already put the main part of this section back together. I've sort of shown this many times before in my videos, so do check out some of my previous videos on the X-wing repair to see how to do that. So we can slot this all together. These two sort of clip pieces need to go through those holes there. This is the bit that might be a little bit more precarious, just because obviously we've repaired all of these, but I think it should go fairly straightforward. There's a bit of flex in everything, so yeah, you can just sort of bend it and flex it. If it breaks, it breaks. I'll fix it again, but I wouldn't have thought that this will break. Just have to push these awkward pieces together. There we go, like that, and then we can insert the metal rod that is the sort of axle point of all of this, and that goes into there, like so. Just line that up. Yeah, there we go. So this is the whole mechanism now, so it should work. If I move that out of the way, we should be able to push down and those open, which they do. Yeah, right. I can now put the rest of this ship together. So I'll bring in the fuselage. That piece has to go in there. We'll screw that down. We've got the landing gear, the one little landing gear we've got, which isn't broken, which we slot in there. That goes like that. Put the top on, and we'll screw it back together. And then we've got a fully working X-wing from what was the remains of a lot of broken X-wings. So let me screw that together and we'll take a look. Just as a little aside, earlier in the video I mentioned I only had one landing gear for these X-wings, so I very quickly just knocked this up. This is just using some styrene rods and some styrene sheets. I've copied the one that I had and very crudely made this little landing gear. It's not perfect, but I think it will sort of fit in quite well, and it will certainly do the job until I find an original to replace it with. So I'm just going to give this a quick coat of paint to make it all black, and I'll slot that in the second X-wing. Certainly feels like I'm getting somewhere now. I've got two X-wings back together. They're not the mintiest of ships, but that doesn't really matter. I like this sort of beaten up look. I'm going to be putting some stickers on them in a minute, and I think they'll look really nice. They'll actually look like sort of proper weathered spaceships. You could go down the route of de-yellowing these if you wanted to, but I'm not going to do it in this instance. I like them as they are. This one here is not looking too bad actually. It's overall fairly white, and it does all work now. So if I press the R2 down, you can see the S4s lock in position, and if I press that, then they flip back into place. Likewise, this one all works. A bit stiffer, this one. I can see there's a little bit of rubbing going on here. I could take this apart and make a few modifications to the side of the ship, but for sort of general display purposes, it's not looking too bad. And then if I unlock that, they do close, and you can see my little handmade landing gear here. If I pull that out, that locks in place quite nicely. It's fairly convincing. I was expecting it to be harder to make something to fit in there than it was, but yeah, that does the job. It's not perfect by any means. You can see it's a little bit loose and a bit floppy, but it's good enough for now. now, as I say, and sometimes that's all you need for projects like this. So there you go, that's the two bare bones of an X-wing. We now need to start making them look like they're sort of finished ship. So I've just printed out the file that's available on toy-polloi.com, which is these stickers. So these are the original sort of Kenner style stickers. These are the Palitoy versions, I should say, because this has the sticker on the back. I'm going to cut these out, stick them on the ships, and that will make them look a lot nicer. Then we'll start dealing with the missing accessories. And what a difference those stickers make to the ship. This one, with all of the sort of the age and the yellowing on the back there, it really is looking lovely now. It just looks like it's come straight from the Star Wars universe. I'm very pleased with how that one is looking. And then we've got this another one here, which is looking quite nice and white. So we've got two very interesting looking ships. And as I say, if you want to do this to your own X-wings, this sticker file is available for free on toy-polloi.com. I have just printed this onto some matte sticky backed printer paper. You can do it on gloss, but I think on these X-wings, the matte finish just tends to look that little bit nicer. So those two ships are now ready for all the extra bits to be added. The first thing I do when looking for parts is actually just to check my parts pot, because I generally have a few odd bits for vehicles or things that I've made. So I've had a quick check in there, and I do indeed have one bit, which is this, which is the canopy, and this is one that I've made myself. So there's a video I did a couple of years back where I made one of these out of some clear polycarbonate sheet, and you can see this is one of my sort of prototype ones. So that would do, that'd be a first piece that I could put in there. And then I also have this X-wing gun, which is one that I have repaired. Again, I've got a video on this. I think the front part of this was missing, so I just had this back part of the X-wing gun, and I've made that out of some Lego, and I think it was a biro cap. I'll put links to both of those videos in the description so you can check those out. So I clearly don't have enough parts to complete both of these, but recently I was contacted by Rianne and Max, who run an eBay store called Xanadu Prime, and they print all sorts of parts for Star Wars vehicles, and they said they'd very kindly send me some. So I sort of said that I was working on this as a project, so they've sent me some pieces, and they've just arrived. First up, we have the canopy. So these are 3D printed canopies. They are printed in a clear plastic. I'm not going to say it's a resin because it's got a bit of flex to it, and that is really very impressive. I've not seen 3D prints that look this good. You can see there's a little bit of sort of frosting to the glass, but it's really pretty clear, and it does look exactly like an X-wing canopy. So they've sent me a couple of those which we need to fit. So they're the canopies, and then they also make X-wing guns. So I've got a whole pile, if I bring them in, of X-wing guns, and these are fantastic. Again, these are 3D prints, and they are so close to the originals. I think you would be hard pushed to sort of spot the difference once they're on the vehicle. I think if you hold two up side by side, so this is partially original, this one, you can spot a few differences. Some of the shapes are not quite exact, but you know, the overall effect is really very impressive. So I'm going to be using these. I think I'll probably use this one here, which is my original one with a sort of repaired in, but all of the others will be these 3D print replacement ones. I will put a link to Xanadu Prime's eBay page in the description, so if you want to check them out yourself, then please do. I know I don't often use 3D prints for projects, but on something like this where I need so many parts, it is an ideal way of doing it, and there are some very good pieces available, as is proved by these. And yeah, so I just need to say a massive thank you to Max and Rianne for sending these over. They look perfect. So let's get these on the vehicles and we'll see what they look like. So the guns are fitted really well. The canopies are a very tight fit, and as I don't want to sort of damage anything, I'm going to make a mild modification to the end of this. It's better that these things are a tight fit than being too loose. To me, it looks like these little posts are just a tad too long. They need a little bit taking off the end because it's going to be really hard to squeeze that in. So I'm just going to file away a very small amount of the end of one of these posts. Really is going to be a tiny amount, and add a little bit of an angle to it. I think that's probably all it's going to require, certainly just a tiny amount off, and then that should fit in a little bit easier. No, still a little bit more. I'm sure you could actually squeeze these in, but I just want to make it so that this is easy to sort of put in and remove. So just a few little modifications like this are sometimes necessary. So let's just try that again. Just ever such a small amount off the end. Yeah, there we go, and that fits very well. Those front bits again are just a little bit too tight for my liking, so I think I'll just sand off the front edges of those posts. Oh no, they do fit. There's a little bit of flex in there. I think just a little bit more taken off the front of those posts will make it fit a little bit sort of tidier for me. I like these things to be as sort of neat and tidy as possible. So yeah, those posts for me are just a little bit too sort of wide, I suppose. They're a bit too long. So quick sand of that, and then these are going to fit really perfectly. Right, let's try that. There you go, that's better. It just needs a tiny little bit of fine tuning. The problem with these old toys is every toy is made slightly differently. So I imagine on some of these will fit sort of really fine straight away. And on other ones, because the plastic is slightly warped or it's been made from it in a different factory, you're going to have to modify it slightly. But you can see that canopy fits really nicely now. And you can clearly see Luke in there flying the X-wing about. And there we go, that is it for this project. I've taken the remains of some very busted and broken X-wings. X-wings that I think most people would have just said just need to be thrown away, and here we are. I've got two really nice looking X-wings. This one's got a little bit of age and a little bit of patina to it, a bit of yellowing on one side. I really do like the look of that one. It just looks like it fits in the Star Wars universe. And this one on the right is looking really very nice indeed. It's not a perfect white X-wing, but it's really very displayable, and with some 3D printed replacement parts, they are looking fantastic. So there you go, you can fix up pretty much anything. It just takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of effort. So these X-wings that most people would have thrown away are now saved from the bin and can go back on display. I do need to say a massive thanks again to Max and Rianne for helping me out with these parts, and do check out their eBay store. They sell all sorts of Star Wars replacement bits, and they are really good quality and ideal for something like this where parts are getting harder and harder to find. So do go and check those out. If you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.